Hey guys, so the 4% rule and some options. Is the 4% rule even valid anymore? Why the 4% rule worked very well when it was invented. Now, if you don't know what the 4% rule is, back in 1994, William Benjamin is an advisor who first articulated the 4% withdrawal rate. So it was basically a rule of thumb that says you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio value each year in retirement without incurring a substantial risk of running out of money. Using this rule, for every $100,000 you have, you'd withdraw 4% a year. And this worked great. Back when this was invented in 1994. And that's because, kind of piggybacking off my last video, bond rates in 1994 were tremendous. Matter of fact, they were about 400-500% higher than they are now. So let's go to the daily Treasury yield. And what I did was, you can look up the historical rates, and I put in 1994 when his rule came about. And you can use almost any of these, but I found on October, where'd it go? On October 20th, 1994, you can get a 30-year bond paying you 8%. So, what does that mean? That means if you had $1 million, you could have bought a 30-year bond yielding you 8% a year for 30 years. Now we'll do some quick math. I can do it in my head. That's $80,000 per year in income or dividend, whichever one you want to call it. It's actually income. But if you had $1 million, is that $1 million? $1 million times 8%, $80,000 per year. And you would have collected that for 30 years. So 80,000, that's going to be times 30 years, $2.4 million. And the beautiful thing about that is, for 30 years, you'd have 80,000. It's not adjusted for income. It's fixed rate, 80,000 every year, year in and year out. The beauty of that is, for 30 years, you collected $2.4 million. And at the end of 30 years, you get your $1 million back. So this was 1994. So there are people still collecting 8% a year on whatever they bought, on whatever money they bought. But now, let's see, what would that be? 2024 is when that bond will mature and they'll get their money back. Now here's the problem. We go to today. Now what do they do with that $1 million? They get 2.38%. So instead of 80,000, they're getting 23,800 for 30 years. So the 4% rule worked very well in 1994 because you had such high interest rates for bonds. You didn't even have to be in the market. You can get a guarantee. If you had $1 million portfolio, you get a guaranteed 80,000 a year. Even if you had 500,000, you get 40 grand a year. That was in 1994. That was good money. Now, like I said, not adjusted for inflation, but I could live on $40,000 a year today. Still, I would have been balling for $40,000 a year in 1994. But so what are our options now? Well, you have a few options. You either increase the size of your portfolio, you decrease your expenses, or you take on a little bit more risk in the market to get a higher dividend yield. Me personally, I am doing a combination of all three because I can't really increase my portfolio size because I started late, so it is going to be what it's going to be. Number two, I can reduce my expenses, and that's what I am going to do. In retirement, my expenses will be cut in half. And also, I am taking more risk in the market where my portfolio is going to give me between a 6 and 7% dividend yield, possibly even more in 10 years. And with the combination of the dividend yield I get and the Social Security income, and possibly, who knows, online work or whatever I can come up with, I can still comfortably retire. Now, so the 4% rule doesn't apply to me. I'd be broke if I did that. So I have to use a more aggressive approach of cutting expenses, increasing dividend yield, and you can do similar things. But to get a livable income in retirement, a safe income in retirement at these bond rates at 2.38%, you'd need $2 million to get, what is that, $47,000 a year? I mean, so the 4% rule is harder to do now. The 4% rule will apply only if you have a significant portfolio amount, because you are just not getting the 8% rates in bonds that you got back in the 90s when that rule was implemented. So I hope that helps. Give me some of your ideas down below. I'd love to hear them. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye-bye.